înfruniat atât de delgado, acolo este, va fi corner, dragi ascultători.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Pitch Please, the game show where two idiots sit in a room and pitch things at each other that no one cares about. I am your host, Alan Dedick. No, I'm your host, Duncan Casey, and welcome back to Valverde Broadcasting, comrades. This is the place to hear about shit that no one cares about. Today, I am, of course, joined by my illustrious co-host and star of Silver Screen.
That's technically true. That's technically true.
Richard Jackson. Hello and welcome, Richard Jackson.
Hey man, I really liked that. I did not keep it together very well whilst you were doing all that malarkey. I dug it.
We are drinking tea and talking about pitching our alternate, because it's my turn to pitch this time, and we're talking about pitching an alternate sequel to 1989's Batman. An alternate Batman Returns, if you will. And I am using Batman Returns as a kind of jumping off point, but and ostensibly keeping it sort of some of the same characters and the same sort of thing, but using the end of Batman 89 as a jumping off point to make what I think could be a slightly better film. Batman Returns was sort of well received, but not too well, wasn't it? I mean, it's not...
Yeah, it's one of these things. Well, my whole bag with these two films is that I think they're massively overrated. And I remember Batman Returns when it came. I remember having like this overwhelmingly positive thing. Is it's like, oh, it's this really clever, callback to German expressionism, and it's so tightly put together and so meaningful. And it's like, yeah, but it's not a Batman film.
Yeah,
you might have missed a trick there, guys. You might have Batman in your Batman film.
Very true.
Oh, apparently, I'm still angry about that.
Some hidden, yeah,
cancerous ball of bitterness that I am.
Okay, so I think a thing that you and I, trying to make this, because I think ultimately the film that came out it was character driven and it wasn't. I think like you've said, I think the wrong characters it was the tail was wagging the dog in terms of which characters were kind of focused on. And my way of sort of bringing it back to a more Batman centric thing would be to address the problem that a lot of people have with Tim Burton's Batman, and also, as it turns out, with Ben Affleck's Batman, is that he kills people. And that's not a thing that Batman generally should do. I mean, I know there's precedence for it in the comic books. I know he's carried a gun in the comic books. I know all that. But the way the character evolved and what actually makes him interesting as a character is that he is anti-killing. And that's, ultimately what makes his rub up against the Joker the big problem. And as we've seen with things like 89's, the 89 film, and with Suicide Squad and all those things, it's like, if you've got a Batman that kills people but he doesn't kill the Joker, it's like, well, why? And then isn't he kind of complicit in all the things that Joker does?
Well, I think that's because Batman is always complicit in what his villains do, but that's because he doesn't kill anybody.
Yeah.
But when he's just killing anybody who shoplifts or whatever, it's like, well, what's...
Well, that's what makes him complicit. If his rule is I don't kill people, then you can't blame him when those villains go and do something. But if he is just killing anyone else... Exactly. So... Here's my way, and I've sort of tried to do this in a way of keeping the cavalcade of characters that came out of Returns, but also kind of bring ones back that didn't get much of a that we wanted to see in it. So here's my thing. So you've got Max Schreck. We start off with Max Schreck, played by Christopher Walken. Of course, with his dopey son. Hey, Dad, I sort of sound weirdly like Arnold, but not quite.
I don't remember the dopey son.
Do you remember the son? It's Chip. That's why I leave my
Chip.
You remember Chip?
It's Chip.
That's how I leave my legacy. and it's like, Dad, no, don't save yourself.
Also, in an act of complete subtlety, he's literally called Matt Schreck, which is like,
and looks like he's got the crazy hair.
It's like if I just fucking did a movie and a character was just called Arnold Schwarzenegger, but never mind.
Yeah,
and let's not muddy the waters with Batman and Robin stuff. But
that's true. But hey, we keep Max Schreck, but instead of so Max Schreck's whole thing in obviously Batman Returns is that he's an industrialist who then tries to inject himself into the mayoral election with
via proxy.
Via proxy. There we are. In this, I think he is still that guy. He's still an industrialist. You play him up as being that kind of alternate Bruce Wayne, because I mean, you imagine that they are the kind of two figureheads of Gotham's industry. But that Max Schreck's got a real thing against Batman because Batman was going around killing people. He killed the Joker. And it's like suddenly at the end of Batman 89, he's up on the pedestal. Everyone's looking at him as the savior of Gotham because he took down the Joker and he saved everyone from that day. But what they're forgetting is that he's gone around and killed people. He blew up Axis chemicals. He created all this destruction. and he's got like a warplane, and he's got a car with bombs that come out of it, and it's like much like kind of Iron Man 2 did. It's that thing of like, you've created this weapon essentially, and you're not accountable to anyone, and I don't like it, and so as an industrialist would, I suppose he goes the litigious route, and he tries to sue him. To take down the Batman.
So he tries to sue the entity of Batman.
He tries to sue the entity of Batman, which probably even potentially tees up the whole Batman Incorporated stuff that came out.
Okay, yeah, well, I was going to say, because I suppose then what you do, because you would make, as this figurehead in that society, you would make hay of the fact that you're essentially trying to sue someone who's presented themselves as an abstract concept, and you're saying, no, that person is accountable.
Yeah.
I am suing, essentially, whoever that person is, I'm suing them, and then you've got the city trying to issue a writ.
Yeah.
To Batman.
Yeah.
They're trying to apprehend him for this civil case, essentially.
And it brings up, again, it plays into, because Tim Burton loved sort of identities and playing with duality, and obviously then you've got Bruce Wayne on the other end of that, who's like, shit. And I like the idea that Batman has to, it brings about, I mean, as much as one of our complaints about Batman Returns is that Batman's hardly in it, I don't want to do that again, but there would be an element of Batman having to be underground, being driven underground. A thing that I wish they'd done with The Dark Knight Rises, because that was at the end of Dark Knight. Obviously, he was driven underground, and I wanted an underground Batman, but that never really happened.
Yeah.
And so you've sort of got Batman driven underground by it all, and wrestling with the idea of like, am I Batman? Am I Bruce Wayne? Who's suing who here? Like blah blah blah. And then eventually, and I don't know how, this is something I've not figured out in the last 10 minutes when I came up with all this. Shut up! Don't you like Carl? Is how this would happen. And it does sort of play into that horrible flashback thing in Batman Forever, where you've got Batman in the courtroom trying to... Anyway.
Yeah.
Right. But at some point, somehow, the entity of Batman is in a courtroom, and he has to be defended publicly by Harvey Dent.
Which I'm insisting is a sneeze, played by a sneeze. Sorry, that was gross. It is Billy D. Williams,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely,
yeah,
100%.
That really
this is
me off.
Well, exactly. This is my way of getting him back into it. So Billy D. Williams is Harvey Dent, is having to... Now, I don't know if we play this, because a thing that, again, has never really been done in the movies is that Harvey and Bruce Wayne are friends, right?
Yeah, because in the Nolan ones, they kind of are, but they've only just met.
It's
and
more
they're not
that,
even
like...
really friends, they're kind of rivals, but,
Yeah, it's more that, like, Bruce sees him as the replacement for Batman and stuff like that, so it's kind of... Which is getting a bit crowbar.
The animated series? The animated series had more of a backstory between those two guys.
Yeah, they were... Were they friends from college? Yeah, I think they were. But I think also... They had that love triangle with, as it turned out, Poison Ivy and stuff like that. But yeah, and I mean, I know they kind of did the love triangle thing in Dark Knight, and and the irony of Bruce trying to hang up the Batman thing and being able to palm it off onto Harvey, but then actually the reason he's doing that is because he wants to be with Rachel, and she's with Harvey. So anyway.
Because there's a lot of like litigation in this film.
Yeah.
Can I pitch you a title that doesn't make any sense?
Yeah.
12 Angry Batmen.
Yes, I love it.
Good.
I love it.
You just need to come up with 11 more Batman.
Yeah. Well, the Batman Incorporated thing makes sense.
Yeah, that's true.
So anyway, yeah, he's defended by Harvey Dent. Somewhere in there, I mean, I think Max Schreck should have links to the mob. I think that there's...
Okay, so he's taken the moral high ground, but he is sinister. He's still bad.
Well, part of the reason why he's doing it is because Batman's gone around and started killing monsters,
I
right?
see. So it's like when the Joker's whole thing of like, we kill the Batman, like Shrek's one is like, well, I'm going to do it through legal means despite being an illegal person.
I mean, I think, because bearing in mind, like, in this one, as opposed to what happens in The Dark Knight, is that the Batman's literally, like, obviously the Joker killed the mob, like, killed Boss Grissom and like, took over his operation. And then Batman's gone and taken down the Joker. So it's almost like Batman's sort of taken on the mob, or he's killed off the head figure of the mob, and now the mob's this sort of flailing, headless thing. So maybe Max Schreck's move is to try and sue the Batman and then come in and take control of the mob. I don't know. There can be any...
Yeah, nice. No, I like
that.
It's kind of the genial move of a mastermind.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, instead of Bane blowing up a bunch of bridges or whatever, it's kind of like, well, I'm as sinister, a kind of criminal person, but I'm going to do it through the... I'm going to assume the moral high ground. It's
the sort of Lex Luthor thing of he's always got this legit public face, but that underneath it all is this horrible, like, this genius mastermind stuff going on. Anyway, during the trial, obviously Harvey has acid thrown in his face, whether it's from a desperate mob person or whatever.
A teenager on a moped.
Whatever it is.
Hashtag too soon.
And his guard becomes Two-Face. The conflict there needs to be more fleshed out, but I think that obviously Harvey has been Batman's only ally perhaps in this, in that the tide of the public thing has turned against Batman through all of this, but Harvey's the only one who stood up for him, and because he's the district attorney, there's a thing where he and Bruce establish a trust or something, and anyway, whatever it is, and then he's disfigured and becomes Two-Face, obviously. I think then right, what did I get to? Also, it's somewhere through all of this, like Batman tussles with the idea and goes, "Yeah, I can't kill people like that." He realizes that was a
you're
folly.
kind of writing that wrong.
That I think has to happen. So there has to be a recognition from Batman that I can't go around killing people, and that's too easy, and blah 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 blah. So then it's like, so there's another thing there, there's a layer of conflict between him and Max Schreck, and that Max is right, but taking Batman out of the equation altogether is wrong, and so there needs to be then a third sort of bad guy that's, maybe it's the Penguin, maybe it's whoever, who gets to the point, and it could be that
Calendar Man.
Yeah, Condiment King.
Condiment King.
But it could be that the Penguin is there, and that whole subplot about him trying to make him the mayor is still there, because it's Max, getting out over his skis and basically trying to too much take control of all the different offices of government. So he's like, right, I'm going to put my guy in. He's a big, and then I don't know what happens, but then at some point that gets out of control, and you need Batman to take him down. So that hence where Batman returns, but he returns, changed. I wrote down something that doesn't make sense. Oh, okay, and then obviously, I don't know if part of that is that Penguin and Two-Face join forces, or it's like Harvey becomes part of the problem, but we've still got this mantra of Batman can't kill. And he realizes that now, and so he's up against two foes who, like, one of which he has this tie to, who was trying to save him, and now he feels obligated to save Harvey. That still hasn't been done properly, I think, on film, that relationship, and it's so interesting between Batman and Two-Face. So I think that's the world I would love to have seen it get to, and I think that shifts the character of Batman. Tim Burton had this thing about him being mysterious, not being too accessible, and I get that to a point when you're making just Batman. That almost works, but I think when you want to drag it on to other films, I think you need to show character development, you need to show motive, and I think that would be a good way of taking that Batman and making him more into the Batman. And it also fits with your whole Batman killed at the start thing, because he did. Okay, so he did, but how do we write that?
So it's
shit?
got a kind of meta thing to it.
And then the Batman Returns name, apart from 12 Angry Batman's great, but if we keep it with Batman Returns, it's almost like that way of saying, it's metatextual, because like, look, your Batman is returning, and Batman does go away in it and has to return.
I'm into it. I like it.
Maybe.
No, I like it. It's got like a few good Batmen, 12 Angry Batman. It's got that kind of legal angle too, which is the sort of courtroom angle I kind of like. I think the thing is with Batman Returns is that Batman Returns is masturbatory. It's basically, Tim Burton got huge success with Batman, and they said, do what you want with Batman Returns. They gave him carte blanche.
Yeah.
And he just did this really indulgent, he just really wanted to be Murnau or Lang, and that's what he did.
Okay.
And then Batman takes backseat in his own film, because of that, because he's too busy referencing fucking Caligari and Metropolis and stuff like that, and M, which are great things that should be referenced, but there's too much of that in there. If you bring it back to Batman and have the kind of legal thing, and then you get the kind of, the thing as well is you've created that theme that's inherent to Batman. It's like the theme of duality. So there's Batman Bruce Wayne, but there's Matt Schreck with the public face and the private face, or the two business faces, and then
literally Two-Face.
Yeah. That kind of runs all the way through it. And there's no clockwork penguins or clowns getting punched down sewers or any of that kind of shit. I don't know what I'd add to it. It seems pretty tight. I just pulled the Terminator one out of my arsehole. You've got like all these notes.
Well, I just pulled that out of my arsehole.
That's true, but you had the decency to write it down. I suppose that's the
very
difference.
loosely. But that was my sort of. I suppose that's the first two acts. How that resolves itself, I don't know.
How that kind of kicks off.
But I think it's more of an interesting, and that's only my character take on it. I think all the Metropolis stuff, all that stuff, all the aesthetic of Returns, I don't have too much of a problem with. I do think, like you say, I think the tail wagged the dog, or the horse was before the cart, in terms of it was all about that, and it wasn't too much about the characters weren't. They seemed very design led anyway, and sometimes that worked. I think Catwoman worked really well.
Michelle Pfeiffer.
Where's the fife? Give me the fife. It's obscure Simpsons nonsense.
That's why you're here.
Johnny Cakes. Anyway, I think it was. I do think that was so. It's a way of. I think it's a very. It's like saying, look, it's almost like if they were in pre-production on Returns, and you were at that stage, you had to suddenly quickly retool it to be so you couldn't cost them sets, you couldn't cost them.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So
You just got to move the same pieces around the board.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think that's a way of doing it.
Would you tie it into? And I'm being completely. This is not facetious. Would you tie this into the Tim Burton Nicolas Cage? So would this have room to then meld into the Nicolas Cage Superman?
That's a very interesting one because I think one thing I've often said about like one thing that would, and this is for another podcast entirely, but one thing that would have improved Man of Steel and then Batman vs Superman is that if you'd had Nolan's Batman, because I think that could have worked in this instance. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean,
the next one.
There's no reason why Superman couldn't be around then. It's just who comes first. I guess I always thought Batman was around before Superman, maybe, but then I don't know. I mean, it's
well, Batman vs Superman really ran with that in that Batman's supposed to be like this really tonk 50-year-old or whatever the fuck that is.
Yeah, and I'm not sure in that instance that worked terribly well, but I do think I would go back to the Man of Steel graphic novel where you had like that episode basically of Batman meeting Superman and and it all being I don't know.
It's new.
Yeah, there's lots of there's interesting stuff to do there, and how Batman then highlights to Superman a certain side of him that he can't indulge in, and vice versa, and that they, that they actually work together well as a team.
They're night and day, aren't they? That's the point. The two things what they operate in night and day. And
but if Superman adopted Batman's methods, it would be almost tyrannical.
Yeah,
and that's what highlights the Batman that he oversteps his mark a lot.
Alan Moore says that Batman's a fascist. And there's a robust argument for that.
There is,
I'm not gonna sort of. I don't want anyone coming in the comments going like, "No, Batman's Antifa." I'm not interested. Don't care. It's just something someone said ages ago. Just shut the fuck up.
Bat lives matter.
But it's funny because I think taking on addressing Batman killing as a kind of meta thing, I think is really nice. And there was talk when Batman vs Superman come out, it's kind of like, oh no, they're going to kind of address. Like they're going to kind of address Superman killing in
the destruction,
But instead, you've just got Batman smashing people's head in with crates and stuff like that. There's that bit in the director's cut where he just hits that guy against the wall and his blood comes out his head.
Yeah,
it's kind of like, I don't think that guy's alright.
I don't think that's a way to address that. But I think they said they were going to address the collateral damage aspect of it. But the only thing they really did was there was another in battle, and they went, "It's okay, it's been deserted.
It's on an island." Yeah. And they showed all the other stuff again anyway. Like, 9/11 times 1,000.
Yeah.
They just kind of doubled down on it, and we're not going to see that dealt with. I mean, because Justice League came out, and that was a big, insane scattershot mess. That was like 3 different jigsaw puzzles forced together at once.
Right.
So it's not really addressed, and that just went off and did its own thing.
Yeah.
So it is what it is, and just kind of like, don't worry, everybody, it's an empty island. At the end of like Batman vs Superman.
Yeah. No, so I mean, I think. I think there's scope. I think that just tees up the world a bit better than what, because I do think at the end of Returns, you kind of what they did was all sort of soft reboot for Forever anyway, and kind of in a James Bondy type way. It's like, oh well, you could loosely say it's the same character, but not really.
Yeah. They really seem to pushing that fucking Bond template, didn't they? Like with Batman, it's kind of like, well, it's gadgets and cars and a different man and a different woman every time. It seems to be where they wanted to take.
It's weird. But I think. There's precedence in Returns as well for having that answering or righting wrongs of the first film, because there's the whole who let Vicky Vale into the Batcave stuff.
Yeah,
so they were clearly aware of the backlash. So I just think you could have done that, and then the great thing is it makes you look like a genius because people go, that's
you were being clever with it.
Yeah. So I think that is I don't mind Batman Returns. It's not a film I sling on a lot. I used to watch it a lot as a kid because I just loved Batman, but then that was at the years when you had VHS, you just fast forward to all the Batman bits, and you wouldn't really watch the boardroom shit between Max Schreck and.
Hot take: Batman Forever is my favourite out of those 4. Have we had those conversations before?
I don't think we have, no.
Yeah, I out of those 4 movies, I like Forever the most. I've never really. I don't get me wrong. I absolutely am conversant with the artistic merit of the first 2 Batman films. But they're just no fucking fun, man. And don't get me wrong, Batman and Robin is awful. Yeah. But it's just kind of like, if Batman Forever as a kind of remake of Adam West Batman is fucking brilliant. And as a kid, I was kind of like, I really liked it when it came out. And then I sort of found out more about Batman. I was like, yeah, it's bullshit. Fucking this is bullshit. Batman's supposed to be dark. And then like looking at it with a bit of perspective, I'm like, nah, it's actually loads of fun.
It is loads of fun. I think the thing that dates it is oddly the thing that I think one of the things that I used to love about it as a kid was just the Jim Carrey of it all. I mean, I love Jim Carrey for all sorts of reasons.
I
but
will not sanction your buffoonery.
Yeah.
The classic Tommy Lee Jones quote.
Really?
Oh, have you not heard that?
No.
Oh, I just spunked it. This is such a shame. Basically, Tommy, when they were gearing up to do Batman Forever, Tommy Lee Jones was in a restaurant in LA or whatever, and Jim Carrey was there, and he walked over and he was like, "Oh, hey, so we're going to be doing some stuff together." And apparently Tommy Lee Jones kind of hugged him, took him by the shoulders, and just said to him, "I will not sanction your buffoonery." It's just the greatest quote from the world's most serious man.
I just imagine him being like, "I will not sanction your buffoonery." like, in that old Tommy Lee Jones, I've been trying to work on a Tommy Lee Jones, but I can't. I need to warm up to it because I haven't done it. But it's like, it's like, I do not care for your buffoonery. It's that sort of. He's very like this and everything. I don't know. I've got to work on it.
That was good. Is it, mate? Fucking Josh Brolin does it so well in Men in Black 3.
Yeah.
He's like, "How do you know my name?" Like, I can't do it.
How do you know my name? Everything's sort of like it's said with this. No, I've got to try and spread my mouth a bit. Anyway, I'll work on it. That's what we're working.
You heard it here first.
Yeah,
Duncan Casey has to spread his mouth a bit
to accommodate Tommy Lee.
He's got a very wide penis. It's like a fish.
Like a place.
It would.
It would flat and wide.
It would fit perfectly through your letterbox. A flat, wide penis.
Got run over by a steamroller. Anyway.
Oh, hi everyone at home. I hope you like learning about Batman.
Speaking of buffoonery.
He would not sanction this buffoonery.
It's hard not to just sort of do Tommy Lee Jones and turn into Clinton, really. I will not sanction your buffoonery.
Used to share a dorm room with Al Gore.
Oh.
That's a weird link.
Super ethereal.
But
yeah. So yeah, I think that's it's interesting where everything went with Batman and that series of films. I do think it's funny because Forever was an attempt to try and make it more character centered, make it, but a lot of that got cut out, didn't it? But it was about trying to make it more about Bruce Wayne and trying to make his struggle, which is hard. It's almost like the soft Batman Begins in a way, the way they did that.
It doesn't feel like a continuation of Batman Returns at all.
No,
you got like Michael Goff, Pat Hingle, and a few returners, but like the whole tone is completely different.
Yeah,
like it's got like a tie-in YouTube video and stuff, and Seal. Like it's completely different.
Does Batman kill in that? I suppose
does he kill Two-Face? Oh no, he
throws the coins up.
He throws the coins up.
So sort of like by his actions,
Two-Face kind of lets him die.
Yeah,
I suppose. But I dig Forever.
I loved it as a kid. I think it doesn't. It's fluffy, but I like it.
There's the difference between that and sort of like Batman and Robin has all that kind of look, but it's actually got this it's really long and it's really pointlessly dense.
Yeah.
It's really self-important, even though it's like all done in pink lighting and stuff, and it's like, I still see you or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's weirdly self-important and sort of up its own arse, and it's got this peculiar concept of its own gravitas. It's like you just did a bicycle chase across like infinite statues in the sky. Like,
well, it's again, it's a sort of soft version of Returns in that you had that big success with Forever. That Forever was not expected to be that big a hit because of the returns of Returns. Even though that was quite big, but you know what I mean. It was like this sort of weird pendulum swing, and then because the expectations were low, it did very well. And then Joel Schumacher was like, and to be fair to him, it's like he was given very little time to prep this monstrosity of a thing to like get it moving again, and it was all very like, that's why again it's all designed over like Mr. Freeze's like ship that fires out. It just looks like a big suppository that comes out, and all that sort. And there's skyboarding because that was a thing, and it's
also got Don the Dragon Wilson, star of the Cyber Tracker and Ring of Fire series.
Is it?
He plays
the gang guy.
Yeah, with the skull on his face. It's Don Wilson.
Nice.
From Cyber Tracker, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
I think so. Ultimately, what you're saying is Duncan Casey's Batman Returns could have been released as described, and we might have still got Batman Forever. The way Warner's handled it, they could have just gone like, no, we're if you didn't get the returns.
Well, I think my pitch for Returns, and like I say, I haven't.
It is better. Don't get me wrong.
Well, I haven't concluded it, so I haven't really come up with a third act for it. So, but bearing in mind, I did pull this out my arse about 20 minutes ago.
Anime tea.
So, but I think that might even key into Forever better because you've got Two-Face at the start of it, who is Two-Face. That makes more sense because at the start of Forever, it's like this whole like they're acting like this has been a thing.
Yeah.
But it's like it never was established before that, and then you get the little flashback jobby. But it's like, well, but you know,
didn't you used to be Lando Calrissian?
Yeah.
And now you're played by a sort of angry crocodile's handbag. When did that happen? That whole thing? Because when I was a kid, I never noticed that because I probably just wasn't au fait with Batman stuff enough at that point. Even though I watched animated series, I never really clocked Harvey Dent in. Batman, it's quite short and like
it's only because they call him that at one point.
Yeah, because he kind of does a speech in the steps, and it's like, oh, it's fucking Lando Calrissian, okay.
Yeah.
And then you come back for the third one, and it's just such a radical recast. And it's like, poor, because I think they also had they'd planned to have. I can't remember who the youngest at the time Wayans' brother was, but like Damon Wayans or whatever was going to be Robin.
Right.
And I think they even sculpted an action figure, and he got a contract on pay or play, so he still got paid for it.
Right.
And they were going to wheel out a Wayans as Robin in Batman Returns, and it was kind of left by the way.
Well, that was going to happen in Batman as well, wasn't it? There's that whole ejected. There's a. It's on one of the DVDs. There's a whole storyboarded sequence where Batman's on a horse and he goes through the circus, and there's
Jesus Christ, where would that even fit in?
I know. I think he's chasing the Joker on a horse, and they go through the circus. Somehow that happens.
Here's my pitch for that scene.
Yeah.
Batman is chasing the Joker through the circus on a horse, and Batman knocks over the ladder with the Graysons on it, and they die.
Yeah.
And Robin doesn't realise, he blames it on the Joker. And then the interplay between Batman and Robin is this really awkward thing that he just keeps Robin away from asking any questions about what happened.
Shut up.
Shut up, Batman.
Yeah, I mean, it's I know. Well, and that's the interesting thing about it is it's not. It can't be that they just wanted to whitewash it necessarily. It's that thing of they obviously didn't have a problem casting ethnic, and neither did anyone else. And it was like, didn't Billy D. Williams get bought out of?
I think he did. I think he had a multi-film contract as well. Yeah, because I mean, there wasn't much fuss made about it, and it did really just seem that they wanted, don't want to be too mean to Billy D. Williams at that point in his career, but who had more star power? Tommy Lee Jones off the back of The Fugitive, or Billy D. Williams from Star Wars 10 years ago.
Well, Billy was going on a downslide effectively, and Tommy was on his upslide. So it's like I suppose
they wanted a fucking movie star.
Yeah.
Because don't get me wrong, like I really like Batman Forever in that cycle of films, but it's veteratly cynical. Like it's the absolute pinnacle of the fucking toy movie. You know what I mean? Like Volcano Mission Batman. Like all that crap.
Totally. And you've got Jim Carrey, and you've got all these people who he's not the Riddler in that. I mean, I know he sort of says riddle me this and shit like that, but it's not. He doesn't. It's not the Riddler.
That's one of those really, really, really cocaine-fueled performances.
Yeah,
it's like you watch the interview. I watched some Batman Forever stuff the other night. Actually, interviews with Jim Carrey, and he keeps like bursting into characters and stuff. And it's like this is like Robin Williams level blow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. Do you know what? I think it's that. I think it's also the pressure of like. He's the funny. I think he was at a stage where he was so catapulted into like the heights of stardom, and he'd only had. I think at the point of Batman Forever, he'd only had Ace Ventura out. I think The Mask was in the can perhaps, but I think he'd only really had that out.
Well, that was such a rapid ascent. So I remember kids our age just went fucking mental for Jim Carrey. Like we watched anything he was in, and that's part of what played into the Batman thing. It's because like fucking Jim Carrey's going to be in it. Like, and it's just an advert for China White, you know what I mean? Like,
for gag.
For gag.
It pretty much is. But interesting, I mean, I think it's a timing thing. I think that kind of film, if Batman 89 was made, I mean, I don't want to say that because essentially Batman Begins was made, and then and it still had that realism. And I don't know the direction they took with The Dark Knight. We will get to, I'm sure, at some point, but it wasn't necessarily the way I would have gone. I still love the film, but so I think anyway that's how I would propose to right the wrongs of Returns, and how I would, without as much damage to the films either side of it as possible, slot in an alternate.
Slot
it in like Tommy Lee Jones's penis through
the unsuspecting
through
letterbox.
the keyhole. So there we are. We've landed on a sort of weird, odd, doesn't make any sense kind of thing. We ended up talking about.
We digressed.
But I think there's a pitch in there that hopefully now you have to score my pitch out of 6 apparently.
Yeah, I'm
or
sticking
out
with
of
the 6. I would score that. I would score that 5 haddock-shaped penises out of 6. I cannot sanction your buffoonery.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for tuning in and listening to this nonsense. It has been fun, and we hope to see you back again for another episode of Pitch Please.